The Silent Orphan, a story of survival and strength. In the heart of Imo State, surrounded by the lush green hills of the southeast, lay the small village of Nkwume. It was a place steeped in tradition, where the rustling of palm trees and the chants of elders were as constant as the rising sun. But amidst the rich culture and warmth of the community, there was one soul who lived in complete silence: Nnenna, the orphan girl. Nnenna had lost her parents during the deadly floods that ravaged Nkwume 5 years ago. The villagers watched in horror as her mother and father were swept away, leaving Nnenna alone at just 9 years old. Grief-stricken and shocked, Nnenna withdrew into herself, refusing to speak a single word. She became the Silent Orphan, a child the villagers pitied but feared. They whispered that her silence was a bad omen. Nnenna was left to wander, with no family willing to take her in. She survived on the fringes, picking fruits from the thick bushes, gathering rainwater in her palms, and learning the ways of the forest that surrounded Nkwume. With time, the village forgot about her. She became like a ghost, always there, but unseen. Her silence became her shield. The villagers believed her to be cursed, but they did not see her strength. Nnenna knew the forest like no other. She could track the footprints of antelopes, distinguish edible roots from poisonous ones, and even build small traps to catch wild game. The once timid child had grown into a silent warrior, her sharp instincts honed by the harshness of her solitude. One year, during the peak of the harmattan season, a mysterious illness swept through Nkwume. The village's children, and even the elders, began to fall gravely ill, their bodies weak with fever. The local healer, Mama Ada, had tried all the herbs she knew, but nothing seemed to work. Desperation gripped the village, and the chief called a meeting, seeking ideas. Nnenna, sitting by the edge of the crowd in her usual quiet manner, overheard them talking about the need for a rare herb, utazi, which only grew in the deepest parts of the Nworie forest, a place known for its dangerous wildlife and mystical spirits. The villagers were too afraid to venture there. Without a word, Nnenna stood up. The elders watched in silence as the orphan girl left the gathering and headed toward the thick forest. They said nothing, believing her journey to be futile. For days, Nnenna disappeared into the wilderness. She navigated the dense trees, sleeping on hard ground, her ears attuned to the sounds of prowling animals. She had faced danger before, and knew fear could not stop her. Her small body moved swiftly, driven by the determination to save the village that had once turned its back on her. On the 4th day, just as the sun dipped behind the hills, Nnenna returned, her hands full of utazi leaves. Mama Ada rushed to her, barely able to believe her eyes. The herbs were quickly turned into medicine, and within a week, the sickness began to fade. Children regained their strength, and the elderly were seen walking again. The village rejoiced, but this time, they did not ignore the one who had saved them. Nnenna, though still silent, was no longer just the orphan girl. She had shown strength, courage, and wisdom far beyond her years. The villagers came to her hut, bringing gifts of food, clothing, and respect. Nnenna never spoke, but her silence no longer mattered. She had survived, not only the loss of her parents, but also the harshness of life on her own. And in her silence, she had found strength that the world could not deny. The orphan of Nkwume had become its quiet hero, her story a legend whispered among the hills of Imo for generations to come.
freenigerbeats.com. Download more on freenigerbeats.com.